Hi, I'm Zoe. I am a Goucher Junior. I studied abroad in high school when I was 15. I studied abroad in a town called Roustrel in Provence in the south of France. I'm sure I'm butchering the name. It's like Roustrel, but like the French accent, they got something about their R's. And that was the summer of 2014.
I studied abroad in Glasgow.
Hi, I'm Emily. I studied abroad in Viterbo, Italy.
My name is Sarah. I use she, hers pronouns. I studied in Glasgow. We were in the West End, which is really near university's campus.
It definitely took me at least 2 months to get accustomed to being there and all the things that were different about it. In France, what I most noticed about the difference between French-American culture is the way that people behave around meal times. That like dinner is something everyone on the premises does together, and it takes 2 hours, and you're just sitting leisurely at a table talking about the day and about what you're planning on doing and eating the food, but it's not just about sitting down, eating food, and then leaving. Whereas Americans, I feel, are very rushed around food. We're all about fast food, pre-prepared things, quick cleanup. Yeah, literally fast food. But France, they're all about slow food, the slow process of cooking, the slow process of eating and cleaning together. All of those things are like community building.
I think the transition was pretty hard for me, which is just something that is, like, transitions are just hard for me. I'm sure many people related to that too. I noticed just like confidence in like students to be on their own. Like students start living by themselves, at least in my perspective, like much earlier. Yeah, there's just this sort of more fluidity of like going out because things are more accessible or cheaper. I kind of felt this sense of trust and flexibility to like engage with people in a way I don't really feel in Boston. I mean, I think being at like a big university too, in comparison to Goucher, sometimes I noticed like more studiousness in a way. Like we're just getting together to like work on this project, and we might not like hang out in our free time together.
I started drinking a lot more coffee. And then I started paying for meals for other people because they don't split checks there, like ever. So if you go out with a friend, then one of you buys, and then just the next time you go out, the other one buys. So I've kind of gotten into the habit of that, like instead of having someone Venmo me exactly what they owe me, just being like, oh, well, the next time we get coffee, you'll buy my coffee, and then that'll make it even.
I thought way more about wearing like colors. Like I was wearing green and white to Oranmore one time just because I liked the look of it. But like in the West End, I guess you wouldn't like really get like hurt. But if you went to another part of Glasgow, there's a chance someone would be like, why are you wearing Rangers colors right now? Like, I remember like going out with Abby and Vita one night, and this guy was like telling us that like you never like reveal your side to someone if they ask you, unless you're trying to like start a fight, and they'll come up to you and say like, you want a square goal or something.
Some students have had previous travel experience and have been exposed to other cultures. This doesn't automatically mean that they will not have some difficulties adjusting. I've heard some students say, however, that they did not have any adjustment issues in the beginning when they were expecting to.
It didn't take me very long just because I grew up in London, and so navigating Glasgow, especially like street names, transit, and like just kind of some of the basic things you need to know kind of came really quickly back to me because I just kind of was remembering like where I grew up, and like so it wasn't that hard to transition to it. The street names are very weird in Glasgow. They're long and weird, and the bus stop names are very weird too. And so asking people for directions if you did end up getting lost while they spoke the same language, they didn't understand like what I was saying because I was just butchering the sign names. Same with getting in the bus. They would not know where I wanted to go. I definitely felt American when Laura or I would say something, and Laura's flatmate Neve would always go like, oh, that's so American. Like, we'd be like talking about raccoons, and she'd be like, oh, raccoons? That's so American. And so at that moment I felt very like aware of the fact that I was an American. But when we would go out and like go out at night to like bars and clubs and stuff, when Glaswegian women really like to talk to me, because I usually look kind of weird or I have like crazy makeup, and I go really hard when it's like time to dance. And so I always would have Glaswegian women coming up to me being like, I fucking loves ya, you know, just like being like, you're amazing, like all over me. And so then in that moment I would feel very like, oh, I feel like I belong here.
Reverse culture shock. That's like when you return from another culture to the culture you were raised in and you experience culture shock again, right?
Even those students who are excited to return home sometimes reach out and tell me how much they miss everything, and that they are having a hard time readjusting now.
It was like extreme like heartbreak.
Sometimes their family and friends can't understand what they've been going through, and sometimes they themselves have a different attitude or opinion on things.
I picked up a lot of like slang that like is not really used in the States, or like specific curse words that like we would never use, but in the UK it's fine. So I started saying them there. It's everyone says. I didn't come back with an accent, but definitely the cussing kind of, I was like, I can't say that. Yeah, I yelled at my mom over a quesadilla and I called her a you know?
Maybe like the cavalierness with which I drink wine in public is a bit French of me. I forget that like having an open container in the United States is actually a crime. Because you know, it's you're walking down the street with a glass of wine in your hand. What's wrong with that? No, you got a Merlot and a cigarette and a good vibe going. Who am I harming? Some very close calls.
I was like definitely rejecting being back. Oh yeah, I remember I like downloaded Hinge like the week that I got back. And I like uploaded all these photos of myself from like Glasgow. Like the people I was swiping on were people I was like reminded of like meeting or being in class with. And so it was for sure a kind of like, let me see if Glasgow exists like in Boston too, like, you know, somehow.
I don't know. I think that I'll keep like habits that I learned in Italy. Another thing that I noticed that was very different was how people view free time, because in Italy there's like so much like wasted time, I guess. Like they have like siestas where like the shops aren't open and the restaurants aren't open because people are just like chilling. And there's so many Italians that'll just like be fine with like doing nothing and just hanging out leisurely for a long time, which I think is very valuable because America is so like capitalistic, and it's like any time that you're not doing something, then you're wasting time and you're not being productive, and we view ourselves as like, I guess like a means of production, like you always have to be working or doing something. I got back really late at night, and then I woke up the next morning and like went downstairs, and like my mom had made coffee in a coffee pot, and like I hadn't had like regular coffee in so long. I'd just been having like the shots of espresso every morning, so it was weird to have like a giant mug of coffee, and that felt very American. And then like the first time that I got takeout, it felt weird because they don't do takeout in Italy. Like every meal is like sit down and really focus on enjoying your food.
Yeah, I found myself really unsatisfied with dinner at my parents' house. Not unsatisfied like hungry, but unsatisfied like we would spend 20 minutes in silence and then leave. And I was like, but there's more to this. Can't we interact and communicate? And from my parents' perspective, I'm sure they were doing their best to make us interact and communicate, and we just weren't having it, so they weren't trying all that hard anymore. But when I came back to America, that was very unusual, getting used to eating mostly by myself, mostly really quickly.
My advice is to take it one day at a time. It sometimes helps to know that there are others who are going through the exact same feelings. The most important tip is to understand what you're dealing with. It's natural, and many people deal with it, no matter what age or background you have. Sometimes students have such a profound experience that they decide to return for further studies or to live and work abroad.